Good evening. This is All India Radio. I am Nishit Kumar and with me is R.S. Raghu with the evening news. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says countries giving protection and support to terrorists must be held accountable. Prime Minister addresses Bloomberg New Economy Forum, calls for rejuvenation of urban centers in post-COVID world. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar allocates portfolios among cabinet members, retains home and general administration. BJP gets finance, health, agriculture, revenue and land reforms. New education policy aims at making India a global knowledge superpower, says Vice President. Country's COVID-19 recovery rate reaches 93.43%. And Delhi government proposes curbs on weddings, sealing of markets to deal with the rising COVID-19 cases. As the nation fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said terrorism is the biggest problem in the world today. He stressed that countries that give protection and support to terrorists must be held accountable. The Prime Minister was addressing the 12th BRICS Summit via video conference this evening.
आतंकवाद आज विश्व के सामने सबसे बड़ी समस्या है। हमें यह सुनिश्चित करना होगा कि आतंकवादियों को समर्थन और सहायता देने वाले देशों को भी दोषी ठहराया जाए और इस समस्या का संगठित तरीके से मुकाबला किया जाए।
The Prime Minister expressed happiness that under Russia's leadership, BRICS counter-terrorism strategy has been given the final touch. He said India will take it forward during its leadership. He added that during its leadership of BRICS, India will promote digital health and traditional medicine among BRICS countries. The Prime Minister highlighted that due to the strength of its pharma sector, India was able to provide medicines to over 150 countries during COVID lockdown period. He said countries' vaccine production and delivery ability will help mankind in the same way. The Prime Minister emphasized that reforms in the UN Security Council are very important. He said India expects support from BRICS partners on this issue.
भारत का मानना है कि यूएन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल में रिफॉर्म्स बहुत ही अनिवार्य है। इस विषय पर हमें अपने ब्रिक्स पार्टनर्स के समर्थन की अपेक्षा है। यूएन के अतिरिक्त कई अन्य अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संस्थाएं भी वर्तमान वास्तविकताओं के अनुसार काम नहीं कर रहे हैं। WTO, IMF, WHO जैसे इंस्टीट्यूशंस में भी सुधार होना चाहिए।
The Prime Minister stated that India has been a core supporter of multilateralism and the entire world is considered a family in Indian tradition. He said India's commitment towards UN's values has been paramount. Mr. Modi said this year's theme of the summit, Global Stability, Shared Security and Innovative Growth, is not just contemporary but also futuristic.
विश्व में महत्वपूर्ण जियो स्ट्रेटेजिक बदलाव आ रहे हैं जिनका प्रभाव स्टेबिलिटी, सिक्योरिटी और ग्रोथ पर पड़ना और पड़ता रहेगा और इन तीनों क्षेत्रों में ब्रिक्स की भूमिका अहम होगी।
Prime Minister Modi also paid tributes to the soldiers who were killed in the Second World War. He added that more than 2.5 million soldiers from India were active in this war on many fronts like Europe, Africa and Southeast Asia. Later in the evening, the Prime Minister addressed the Bloomberg New Economy Forum. Speaking at the event, Mr. Modi said it is time to think about post-COVID requirements of the world and call for rejuvenation of urban centers. He said the pandemic has shown that cities which were growth engines are also vulnerable zones.
We are at a very important point in our history. More than half of the world's citizens already live in urban areas. Over the next 2 decades, India and some of the African nations are going to witness the biggest wave of urbanization. But the COVID-19 pandemic has posed enormous challenges before the world. It has shown us that cities which were our growth engines are also our vulnerable zones.
The Prime Minister said the restart will not be possible without a reset of mindset, processes and practices.
The very things which represented living in a city are facing a question mark. Things like community gatherings, sports activities, education and recreations are not the same as before. The biggest question before the entire world is how to restart. The restart will not be possible without a reset of mindset, a reset of processes and a reset of practices.
Mr. Modi stressed on the need to build sustainable cities where cleaner lakes, rivers and air are the norm and not the exception. The Prime Minister said Indian cities presented an extraordinary example during the pandemic, even as there were worldwide incidents of resistance against the lockdown. He said Indian cities meticulously followed these preventive measures. Mr. Modi said cities are vibrant engines of growth and added that post-COVID world has to be built by nurturing this key and fundamental resource. The Prime Minister said India has exciting opportunities for investment in urbanization, mobility and innovation. He said these opportunities come along with a vibrant democracy, a business-friendly climate, a huge market and a government which will leave no stone unturned to make India a preferred global investment destination. Mr. Modi said his government has announced simplified guidelines for technology and knowledge-enabled service sector to empower people to work from anywhere and live anywhere. He said, looking at conditions created by the pandemic, NDA government introduced an affordable rental housing initiative and brought the Real Estate Regulation Act. He added that this has transformed the dynamics of the real estate sector and made it more customer-oriented and transparent. The Prime Minister said Make in India push had led to development of tremendous indigenous capacity for production of transportation systems. He said it is going to help push the sustainable transport goals in a big way.
Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar today allocated portfolios among cabinet members. A 14-member council of ministers headed by Mr. Kumar was sworn in at Patna yesterday. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar has retained the Home, Vigilance and General Administration departments. The BJP has retained key portfolios like finance, health, agriculture, revenue and land reforms. The JDU will hold rural development, education, parliamentary affairs, water resources, energy, prohibition, excise and registration and planning and development. Deputy Chief Minister Kishore Prasad will hold the Finance, Commerce and Disaster Management Department. He will also hold three important portfolios like Urban Development and Housing Department, Information and Technology, Department of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Deputy Chief Minister Renu Devi has got Industry, Panchayati Raj and Backward Caste and Extremely Backward Caste Welfare Department. Our correspondent has the details.
In the allotment of portfolios of departments, this time BJP and JDU has followed more or less same formula like previous government. Senior JDU leader Vijay Kumar Chaudhary, who was the Speaker of 16th Bihar Assembly, will be Rural Development Department Minister along with four other departments. Another senior JDU minister, Vijendra Prasad Yadav, has succeeded to retain his previous portfolio of Energy Department. The first time minister in Nitish Kumar-led cabinet and former Vice Chancellor of Sabor Agriculture University, Mewalal Chaudhary, will be new Education Minister of Bihar. The Hindustani Awam Morcha leader and son of former Chief Minister Jitan Ram Manjhi, Mr. Santosh Kumar Suman, will hold Department of SC and ST Welfare Department. Senior BJP leader Mangal Pandey has retained the Health Department and the former Deputy Speaker of Bihar Assembly, Amrendra Pratap Singh, will be Agriculture Minister. In the state cabinet, out of 14 members, 8 new faces have been inducted. Dharmendra Kumar Rai, AIR News, Patna.
Meanwhile, the first session of the newly elected 17th State Legislative Assembly will be convened from 23rd of this month. The session will conclude on 27th of November. The decision was taken in the first meeting of the newly constituted State Cabinet today. The second flight test of Quick Reaction Surface to Air Missile System QRSAM was successfully conducted today from the integrated test range at Chandipur off the coast of Odisha. The first in the series of the test of QRSAM took place on 13th of this month. Today's flight test was carried out against the high-performance jet unmanned aerial target called Banshee, which simulates an aircraft. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has congratulated DRDO for the back-to-back successful test trials of Quick Reaction Surface to Air Missile. Home Minister Amit Shah today hit out at Congress and Gupkar alliance, alleging that they want to take Jammu and Kashmir back to the era of terror and turmoil. He said they want to take away rights of Dalits, women and tribals that centre has ensured by removing Article 370. In a series of tweets, Mr. Shah said the Gupkar gang is going global and they want foreign forces to intervene in Jammu and Kashmir. He accused the Gupkar alliance of insulting India's tricolour. He asked senior Congress leaders Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi to make their stand clear whether they support such moves of the Gupkar gang. The minister asserted that Jammu and Kashmir has been, is and will always remain an integral part of India. You are listening to the evening news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says countries giving protection and support to terrorists must be held accountable. Prime Minister addresses Bloomberg New Economy Forum, calls for rejuvenation of urban centres in post-COVID world. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar allocates portfolios among cabinet members, retains home and general administration. BJP gets finance, health, agriculture, revenue and land reforms. New education policy aims at making India a global knowledge superpower, says Vice President. Country's COVID-19 recovery rate reaches 93.43%. And Delhi government proposes curbs on weddings, sealing of markets to deal with rising COVID-19 cases. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो एक इरादा करते हैं, चलो खुद से वादा करते हैं, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has said that the new education policy aims at making India a global knowledge superpower. Addressing the 13th convocation of the National Institute of Technology at Agartala virtually, Mr. Naidu emphasized on the need for the country to once again become a Vishwaguru in the field of education. He said the policy draws inspiration from the ancient Indian education system, which used to focus on developing holistic and well-rounded personalities. Mr. Naidu called upon the higher education institutions and universities to make India a thriving hub of knowledge and innovation. He told students to utilize their knowledge, skills and aptitude that they acquired over the years in building bright, fulfilling and successful careers. Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister Dharmendra Pradhan today said that the Open Acreage Licensing Policy, OALP, is a market-friendly policy. It is driving self-reliance in energy sector. He was speaking at the signing of contracts for 11 oil and gas blocks offered under the OALP bid round 5. The minister said the OALP has removed red tapeism and brought in a quantum jump in exploration and production sector.
Paddy procurement for Kharif 2020-21 is continuing smoothly with purchase of over 284.18 lakh metric tons LMT of paddy till yesterday against last year's corresponding purchase of 239.69 LMT. This is an increase of 18.56% over last year. Punjab alone has contributed 198.38 LMT, which is 69.81% of total procurement. About 24.39 lakh farmers have already benefited from the ongoing procurement operations with MSP value of over 53,000 crore rupees. Government today clarified that Department of Social Justice and Empowerment has rigorously followed with the implementing agencies so that beneficiaries of scholarship schemes do not face any burden, especially during the pandemic. Some news articles have mentioned that the students are facing a lot of hardships due to delay in dispersal of scholarship. Social Justice and Empowerment Ministry said in a release that under the flagship scheme of post-matric scholarship for scheduled caste students, the department has already released 75% of central share by June this year to all concerned states and UTs based on anticipated demand.
The government today said that deaths per million population due to COVID-19 in India is amongst the lowest in the world and stands at 94 deaths per million population in the country. Briefing media in New Delhi, Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Rajesh Bhushan, said India records average of 3 new deaths per million population in the last 7 days, whereas global average stands at 8 new deaths per million population. In terms of new cases, Mr. Bhushan said in India, 211 new cases per million population were reported in the last 7 days.
अगर केवल पिछले सप्ताह के आंकड़ों को देखें विश्व भर में तो हमारे देश में 211 नए केस हो रहे हैं प्रति मिलियन पॉपुलेशन, जबकि अनेक देश ऐसे हैं जहां ये 2500 या 3000 से भी ज्यादा प्रति मिलियन नए केसेस हुए पिछले एक सप्ताह में। उसी प्रकार से यदि हम मृत्यु को देखें तो हमारे देश में 94 प्रति मिलियन है, जो कि अभी भी विश्व के काफी कम मृत्यु वाले देशों में से है।
The Secretary said there is also a continuous decline in the daily new cases and only 29,163 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. He also informed that the trend of New Delhi recoveries exceeding the daily new cases continues, with 40,791 cases recovering in the last 24 hours.
एवरेज 46,701 केस रिकवर हुए प्रतिदिन पिछले सप्ताह, और उसी सप्ताह के आंकड़ों को देखें तो औसतन हर दिन 40,365 नए केस रिपोर्ट हुए। यानी पिछले 7 दिनों में हर एक दिन रिकवर होने वाले केसेस की संख्या और नए केस रिपोर्ट होने की संख्या के बीच में लगभग 6,300 का अंतर था।
Mr. Bhushan also said that recovered cases have crossed 82,90,000 and recovery rate stands at 93.43%. The total number of active cases in the country is around 4,53,000. The Secretary also said the impact of the festivals and elections in some states will be seen in this week and the next week in terms of increase in COVID cases. In context of rising COVID-19 cases in the national capital Delhi, Mr. Bhushan said that the central government took urgent actions in this regard, which include increase in overall beds, including ICU beds, double testing from around 60,000 per day to 1 lakh to 1.2 lakh per day, enforced quarantine of contacts and enforcement of containment zone, SOPs, among others. Elaborating more about the action taken in view of COVID-19 cases in Delhi, Niti Aayog member Dr. V.K. Paul said that 3,500 ICU beds are currently available in Delhi, which will be increased to 6,000 ICU beds in the next few days.
हमारे अस्पतालों में जो इंटेंसिव केयर यूनिट है उनका बेड स्ट्रेंथ को बढ़ाया जाए। जो एक एग्जिस्टिंग कैपेसिटी कल परसों तक 3500 आईसीयू बेड की थी लगभग, तो पूरी कोशिश है कि अगले 3-4 दिन के अंदर ये कैपेसिटी 6,000 आईसीयू बेड से भी ऊपर चली जाएगी। यूनियन गवर्नमेंट, दिल्ली सरकार और प्राइवेट सेक्टर ये मिलकर संभव करेंगे और इसका बहुत हद तक काम हो भी गया है।
Dr. Paul said 10 mobile testing laboratories will be deployed for testing, out of which 5 will be pressed into service within 4 to 5 days. He also said house-to-house survey will be done in containment zones in Delhi and in other vulnerable zones. He said a total of 7,000 to 8,000 teams will be engaged on this work. On vaccine development, he said the vaccine of Serum Institute is in the 3rd phase. He said at least 5 vaccines are under trial in the country, of which 2 are in the 3rd phase trial. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal today said that his government has taken the decision to reduce the number of people in the wedding ceremony to deal with the rising cases of COVID-19 in the city. Addressing a press briefing in New Delhi, the Chief Minister said the government has taken the decision to allow only 50 persons in a wedding ceremony. He said earlier the limit was 200, which were allowed in accordance with the guidelines issued by the central government. He said the proposal has been sent for the approval of the Delhi Lieutenant Governor. He added that the proposal will also be sent to the central government to seek the permission for imposing limited restrictions in the marketplaces as a safety measure.
Kerala has reported more recoveries than positive cases. 5,792 new cases of COVID-19 were confirmed today, while 6,620 people recovered from the infection in the state. Meanwhile, 27 recent deaths were also reported due to COVID today, taking the death toll in the state to 1,915. In Karnataka, after 8 months of closure, the degree colleges reopened today with precautionary measures during the pandemic. The President of Karnataka Government College Teachers Association, T.M. Manjunath, informed that majority of the colleges reported low attendance today. Deputy Chief Minister and Minister for Higher Education Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayan visited Maharani College in Bengaluru today to take a stock of the arrangements made for the final year students to attend the classes. Speaking to media persons later, the minister said every care is taken to ensure that the virus does not spread. He expressed hope that the attendance would improve gradually, saying that students constantly complained about online classes. The minister informed that bowing to the demands of the students, the offline classes are started in the state. He made it clear that there is no compulsion to come to attend classes as the online classes will continue.
In Manipur, 159 new COVID-positive cases were reported in the past 24 hours, taking the total count of cases in the state to 22,208. On the other hand, one person died of COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, increasing the total fatality due to the pandemic in the state to 225. The News Services Division of All India Radio, in its bilingual live phone-in program tonight, will bring you a special discussion program on COVID-19. Dr. Narendra Saini, former Secretary General of the Indian Medical Association, will participate in the discussion. This can be heard tonight on FM Gold channel and additional frequencies from 9:30 p.m. onwards. Listeners can ask questions to the experts on toll-free telephone number 1800-115767. You can also ask questions on telephone number 011-2331-4444 and post queries on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts by hashtag AskAIR.
In Assam, the State Election Commission has announced poll schedule for the 40 members Bodoland Territorial Council BTC. As per the schedule, the two-phase polls will be held on 7th and 10th of next month. Counting of votes will be held on 12th of December. State Election Commissioner Alok Kumar said that the first phase will cover Udalguri and Baksa districts, while Kokrajhar and Chirang will be covered in the second phase. Our correspondent reports that the election process had to be deferred earlier due to COVID pandemic. Poll process will be conducted strictly following the broad guidelines issued by the Election Commission of India. In Karnataka, the Congress leader and former Bengaluru mayor Sampath Raj was sent to 2-day police custody today in connection with DJ Halli and KG Halli violence case. Sampath Raj, the Congress corporator from Devara Jeevanhalli Municipal Ward, was arrested last night. He is accused of playing a role in the August 11th violence that left 4 people dead. Karnataka Home Minister Basavaraj Bommai has said that the arrest of Sampath Raj will help police expose people behind the violence.
In view of its weak financials, the Reserve Bank has placed the Lakshmi Vilas Bank Limited under moratorium with immediate effect. In a statement issued today, RBI said the moratorium will be effective for 30 days with a view to protect depositors' interest. Accordingly, RBI has capped all cash withdrawals from the bank to 25,000 rupees. According to the banking regulator, the private sector lender has seen a steady decline in its financials, with its incurring losses over the last 3 years. It may be recalled that the Karur-based bank was placed under the Prompt Corrective Action Framework in September 2019, and yet there was no improvement in its position, with declining advances and mounting non-performing assets. Meanwhile, RBI has appointed the former non-executive chairman of Canara Bank, T.N. Manoharan, as the bank's administrator for the moratorium period. Domestic benchmark stocks today logged gains of more than 0.7% amid mixed global cues. The rupee also appreciated 14 paise against the US dollar. A report from the Business World.
The BSE 30 share index Sensex rose 315 points or 0.72% to settle at 43,953. NSE Nifty 50 index also added 94 points or 0.74% to settle at 12,874. In the forex market, the rupee appreciated 14 paise to close at 74 rupees and 46 paise against the US dollar. And in intraday trade, Brent crude prices were trading above $43 per barrel, while WTI crude prices were above $41 per barrel. This is Lalema Aneja Dang with Sanjeev Kumar Singh for AIR News.
In Madhya Pradesh, a digital museum has been opened at Maharaj Bada in Gwalior for the public. The museum, opened today, is developed by Gwalior Smart City, and entry for the public has been made free for a few days. We have a report.
It is the first center of its kind in Gwalior and Bundelkhand region and will play an important role in educating school children. In the digital museum, the architectural style, objects, costumes, lifestyle, musical instruments, jewelry, handicrafts, cultural tradition and paintings have been digitally displayed in a modern way. Divided into 16 galleries, digital museum has been built in around 3,500 square feet area and will play an important role in showcasing heritage in modern and digital way. Tourists will be able to see the history and heritage of Gwalior adorned in various galleries using state-of-the-art IT equipments. The COVID-19 guidelines will be followed in this museum. With Naveen Srivastava from Gwalior, Sanjeev Sharma, AIR News, Bhopal.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate Bengaluru Tech Summit 2020 on 19th of this month through video conferencing. The theme of the summit is Next is Now. The three-day summit will deliberate on the key challenges emerging in the post-pandemic world with focus on the impact of prominent technologies and innovations in the domains of information technology and electronics and biotechnology. It will see participation of Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, Vice President of the Swiss Confederation Guy Parmelin, and many other prominent international figures. Apart from them, thought leaders, industry captains, technocrats, researchers, innovators, investors, policymakers and educators from India and the world will also be participating in the summit.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Luxembourg counterpart Xavier Bettel will hold a virtual summit on 19th of this month. This will be the first standalone summit meeting between India and Luxembourg in the past 2 decades. The leaders will discuss the entire spectrum of bilateral relationship, including strengthening of India-Luxembourg cooperation in the post-COVID world. They will also exchange views on international and global issues of mutual interest. India and Luxembourg have continued to maintain high-level exchanges in the recent past. The two prime ministers have met previously on 3 occasions. In Bangladesh, the Rapid Action Battalion has arrested a person in South Sunamganj who had threatened to kill Bangladeshi star cricketer Shakib Al Hasan in a live Facebook post. A case was earlier filed against the person under the Digital Security Act for issuing death threat to Shakib for attending Kali Puja event in Kolkata. And now let us take a look at the weather forecast for tomorrow. The national capital is likely to experience fog or mist in the morning. Later the sky will be mainly clear. The minimum temperature will be 12 degrees Celsius and the maximum will be around 26 degrees. Mumbai will observe a sunny day and the temperature will vary between 24 and 35 degrees Celsius. Chennai will have rain or thunder showers with strong gusty winds. The temperature will hover between 24 and 30 degrees Celsius. Kolkata is likely to have partly cloudy sky with temperature fluctuating between 21 and 31 degrees Celsius. On to the north in Srinagar, sky will be mainly clear, becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. The temperature will hover between 1 and 15 degrees Celsius. In Jammu, lower level of temperature will be 10 degrees Celsius, while the upper level will be around 22 degrees. The city will have mainly clear sky, becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. In Leh, sky will be mainly clear, becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. The minimum temperature will be minus 8 degrees Celsius, while the maximum will be around 12 degrees. Gilgit will have partly cloudy sky with temperature hovering between 0 degrees and 15 degrees Celsius. Muzaffarabad is likely to have mainly clear sky, becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. The temperature will move from 5 to 20 degrees Celsius. In Dehradun, the temperature will hover between 10 and 26 degrees Celsius with mainly clear sky. Chandigarh will have mainly clear sky. The temperature is likely to move from 11 to 23 degrees Celsius. In Hyderabad, the minimum temperature will be 17 degrees Celsius, while the maximum will be around 31 degrees. The city will have partly cloudy sky with haze. Ahmedabad will witness a clear sky. The minimum temperature will be 18 degrees Celsius, while the maximum will be around 32 degrees. Patna will have fog or mist in the morning and mainly clear sky later on, with temperature hovering between 16 and 28 degrees Celsius. And Guwahati is likely to have fog or mist in early morning. The temperature will rise from 18 to 31 degrees Celsius. And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says countries giving protection and support to terrorists must be held accountable. Prime Minister addresses Bloomberg New Economy Forum, calls for rejuvenation of urban centers in post-COVID world. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar allocates portfolios among cabinet members, retains home and general administration, BJP gets finance, health, agriculture, revenue and land reforms. New education policy aims at making India a global knowledge superpower, says Vice President. Country's COVID-19 recovery rate reaches 93.43% and Delhi government proposes curbs on weddings, sealing of markets to deal with rising COVID-19 cases. And with that, we end the evening news. Good night.